Hi, this is a post for a sociology assignment. The sociology assignment that I'm going over is when I found myself thinking sociologically. I found myself thinking sociologically when I took a senior trip to Brooklyn, New York with my best friend senior year, year 2021. Going to New York, I had never been there before, and I have never really traveled over the States much to begin with, so it was just really brand new for me. Going there, I had an immediate culture shock from the things that I seen, such as the clothing they wore, the slang that they used, the shoes that they wore, and like their demeanors and attitudes, just basically the way most people carried themselves. First example I want to talk about is the clothing. Being there, I had hung around my best friend's family, which were made up of mostly her cousins around our age. And the clothing they wore a lot of designer brands, which I was shocked because being a teenager, securing designer clothing is, I want to say, not hard, but I don't see most people my age doing that, where I'm from at least. So I was pretty shocked that they were willing to spend that much money on clothing that expensive, but it was also pretty cool because a lot of the clothing that they wore was really interesting and like it just overall looked good. And I've seen a lot of people wearing like, I want to say babe jackets, which can be around maybe $200, $300. I'm having a hard time recalling the other clothing they wore, but I knew they were pretty expensive, just given the brand that they wear. Another clothing that they would also have is the puffers. It being cold in New York, a lot of people wear puffers, and I've seen a lot of Montclair, I've seen a lot of North Face. Those are also expensive brands, somewhat expensive, I want to say. So those overall just was shocking to me. Another example I want to talk about is the slang that they use, the way they interacted with each other. Being around her cousins, I had to ask a lot of questions because honestly, some of the times I didn't know what they were talking about or what they meant by what they said because I was confused. I had not heard that slang overall. Or whenever her cousins were joking with each other, they would use the joking words that they use I was not familiar with, so I'd always have to ask questions and ask them what they meant by it, and just overall study their conversations and listen to how they spoke to each other to try and pick up what they were saying and how they would use it, like their tone of voice, to see whether it was like an aggressive word or like whether they were just joking or just trying to see what the word meant, what the slang they used meant. Another example I want to talk about is their shoes. Being in New York, driving through the streets, I seen countless amount of sneakers. Like lots of people just had fresh kicks on them. Overall, like I feel like the trend in New York is just to have just good looking shoes on you at all times, no matter whether you're going to the corner store or you're walking to the park. Everyone just had really nice shoes on, like Jordans or maybe even Yeezys, just had very nice shoes. Another example is we had went to sneaker ball being in New York for a friend's birthday, and just countless amount of sneakers. Me being from Anchorage, Alaska, we have maybe 2 Foot Lockers, so I did not see those type of shoes back home because most of the shoes that I see in New York, you'd have to order them online, and most people didn't really do that. So basically, I feel like they had more shoes because it was just easier accessible in New York as well. Given my experience, I was able to buy a pair of shoes there that I couldn't get in Anchorage, Alaska. So yeah, and another example I want to talk about is their attitudes and demeanors, how they, I don't know, I want to just say like the way they interact with each other. For example, it was very rude to stare. Staring was one thing that my friend told me not to do. Her mother as well told me it is very rude to stare, and most likely you will be approached and asked, why are you staring at that person? Just whether even if you're admiring them or glancing at them, it's just very rude to stare and just not to do it. And I want to say New Yorkers, I can't speak for all, but most or what I've learned from my best friend, is that they're not so much friendly. They keep to themselves. Say you were walking down the street, you're not just going to approach a stranger that you don't know and try to have a conversation, because first of all, they don't know you and you don't know them. Therefore, they're uninterested to talk to you, and it's like strange. That's just not the social norm. So being too friendly is just not the social norm. Like being cheerful and stuff like that is just very much not so. Well, at least the area where I was at was very much not so. And a lot of the times I would just be observing people. Like the group I hung out with, her family or her cousins, the group I hang out with, I would just observe them from afar, trying to like see how they act, their facial expressions and their behavior, just to try and learn more about people in New York. And I just want to say overall the trip was amazing, and it was just fascinating, learning new things. To this day, I'm still fascinated about New York. I would love to go back. I just think the culture there is very cool in a way. And seeing a lot of people of my complexion there, and people from Caribbean descent, I've seen a lot of people like that I just would never see back home. So it was just like very enjoyable to be around. One last example I want to talk about is their music choice. We did end up going to, I want to say, another birthday party as well, being in New York. And the music they played at that birthday party was way different from any other events I've gone to in the past. So I was very shocked as to see that's the type of music that they listen to, because I would have never thought. And their dancing as well was very different as well. I see a lot of their dances on social media, I want to say TikTok, and it's just, overall, I enjoy watching it and just learning new things about New York and people in New York. I want to say Brooklyn to be specific, but overall it was just a great experience. If you have any questions, just let me know. Thank you.